Hello everyone, my name is Kira and thank you for joining me here for the story of my birth, my intended home birth turned unintended free birth, kind of. I have recorded this video 5 times over the last year and have been looking every flavor of delicious, just looking good in all the videos, okay? And this is how we end up here. This is not one of those videos. I was just down here in one of my fits of inspiration that I get when I have a couple of minutes of quiet to braid together. And even though there's so many things that I really should be working on, it came upon my heart to tell y'all finally the story of my birth, the story of the birth of my son. And we'll get into it in another video about why it took me so long to share, but basically I felt guilty, okay, because I had a magical birth. I knew my whole pregnancy that I was gonna have a magical birth, and that's what ended up happening. And I felt like that being my story was somehow unfair to the many women who don't get to experience that, who never know that there is any other possibility or option for them, who get roped into this system and this programming with really no chance or to no fault of their own. They get roped into this programming that they are not sovereign beings and that they have to bow to this system that tells them that they don't know their own bodies and what and you know, that just so many things, okay? I felt like it wasn't my place, but I am here. So obviously I have had a little bit of an epiphany, and that is that we all have the right to our stories, and they are all beautiful, and it is up to us, each of us as individuals, to make peace with our own stories. So I'm just gonna tell you mine in the hopes that it finds the right person. So let's get into it. Like I said, I knew my entire pregnancy that I was aiming for a supernatural birth, a magical birth. I was preparing for it to be orgasmic for like 5 seconds until I realized that I didn't actually believe that it was possible for me to have an orgasmic birth, even though, you know, I obviously watched the movie and read the book on it. By all of that, and even as I was trying to tell myself these affirmations of I'm gonna have an orgasmic birth, it was not sinking in, it was not hitting. And that's when you know that the limiting belief that you have is buried way down deep in there, and it would take a lot more time than 9 months probably, and a lot more work and effort than I was able to put in to change that belief. So I was like, scrap that idea, let's go for painless. I believe that I can have a painless birth. I found out the number of women who have reported having painless births, and that was good enough for me, because I was like, if there are this many women doing it on record, there are more women doing it off the record, and if they can do it, I can do it. If they are the exception, then I am also exceptional, therefore I can be an exception. And it's kind of like the idea of the 4-minute mile. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this before, but for forever and ever and ever, nobody could run a 4-minute mile, right? Like competitively. And it wasn't until one person finally broke the 4-minute mile that, tell me how in the next year, I'll put the exact numbers up on the screen, but hella people started running 4-minute miles, and more people every year after that, till where now it's no longer you know, that big of a feat to run a 4-minute mile. But until one person did it, everybody else was unable to do it. So you need that one person. All you need is one person. All you need is faith the size of a mustard seed, and you can move mountains. Okay, so knew I was gonna have a painless birth. So I also figured, because I had done so much work around fear and releasing those fears and just was so ready to have this baby, I thought I was gonna go into labor spontaneously at 37 weeks pregnant in my bathroom. You know, just when I go in to use the bathroom at night, I would just ploop, drop the baby and bring the baby back to my husband and be like, I did it, I told you, it's over, let's move on with being parents. And that was how I was fantasizing, as heavily pregnant women do, that this was going to go down. So fast forward to 41 weeks and 2 days pregnant, your girl was having, oh my gosh, I was down in the dumps. I went from somebody who was elated to about being pregnant, and I just loved, and even the aches, I love them, to being somebody who was like, don't even mention, like, don't even look at me, because if you look at me, I know what you're thinking about me, and if I know what you think, okay. So with my midwife, this was a home birth midwife, at 41 weeks and 3 days, she had me scheduled to go in for an ultrasound and a BPP, which is a biophysical profile, to check on the baby. And I was not wanting to do that, because I know that once you start doing these little things, let me just monitor the baby and check it out on the fluid levels, all well-intentioned, and well-intentioned, that can creep towards unnecessary with the things that they start to recommend, and the, you know, watching eyes just never make for a good situation, okay? So I didn't want to go in for this ultrasound and BPP. So that night at 41 weeks and 2 days pregnant, this was Tuesday night, I was like, husband, let's take some more castor oil, because we had been taking, well, I had been taking the castor oil for the 2 nights previous to that at my midwife's suggestion. She said, just take a tablespoon and just, you know, take it back like a shot and just see what happens. And nothing happened. And so on that 3rd day, I was like, this stuff doesn't even work, but I have to, I'm gonna try it one more time, because I really don't want to go into this appointment tomorrow. So I took the castor oil and put it to my lips, and I took a gulp, and my husband claims that I drank like a 1/4 cup. I think that's a slight exaggeration, but I definitely took a healthy swig of castor oil. And at about like 1:30 to 2 in the morning, I was regretting it. I felt it. I got up and sat on the toilet, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have to poop, but it's one of those ones that's just brewing and broiling, right? And then after a little while, I'm like, hold on a second. Contraction timer. So I start my contraction timer and just start seeing if there's any kind of pattern, and I'm pressing the buttons willy-nilly, because at this point I can't really notice like a distinct like tightening and releasing. It's just discomfort. And so I just kind of am just like seeing if any pattern comes up, and doing that for a little while. And then eventually I do start to notice a pattern, and then eventually I do start to notice the pattern to where I'm actually tracking what I believe are contractions. And they were not painful. They were just like a tightening of my belly that was lower than a Braxton Hicks contraction. And it just felt different. Like there's just a knowing in your bones that like, okay, this is it. Just like how they tell you if you're a first-time mom and you have no idea what to expect, and you keep hearing women say you'll know when you're in labor. I hate to say it, but you will know. And so contractions, like I said, they were just uncomfortable, but they were definitely getting more noticeable, to the point where I couldn't talk to my husband through them anymore. And he was starting to get on my nerves. I was like, just please, man, bring me some ice, give me little sips of water, but like, you're heavy-handed with the sips, you're heavy-handed with the ice. I need you to get out of my space. And that was when I started to get a little bit alarmed, because the irritation made me realize like, this is getting more difficult, and I don't like difficult. I really am not. I'm a really low effort kind of girl, and I don't like difficult, but I know that I can do difficult things if I have to. So I'm one of those people who will begrudgingly and silently do it, but man, I hate it, okay? So I was, you know, my spidey senses of like, oh, this is real, I really have to do this. those started to tingle in me, okay? And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, well, then I need to talk to the midwife. I need to let her know what's going on. So I had my husband call her, and she was asleep. It was 4:30 in the morning. I felt bad for calling her. So at first we texted her, sending her a screenshot of the contractions where it said, go to the hospital now. So we sent her that text. And then I was like, no, we need to call her. So we called her. She was asleep. She was like, listen, I just got back from a birth. I'm going to sleep. And as soon as I heard that, y'all, I clocked out. No fault of her own, of course, but I'm already a stubborn and a prideful person. And in labor, even more so. I was like, great, then I will do this on my own while you go sleep, Belinda. And her name is not Belinda. I was just upset. And when I'm upset, I call people names that aren't their names, okay? And so I clock out of the conversation. My husband is talking to her. She's, you know, hemming and hawing about how this is early labor. And once the sun comes up, most first-time moms or women in general, their labor tends to stall because the sun, and we're mammals. All of these things that I knew she was going to say and point out. And yes, I knew it was possibly true, but there wasn't a rational thought in my mind that was like, maybe I'm not in labor, maybe she's right. It was just like I was hearing these words and I was somewhere else. And so, you know, she did ask to talk to me, and I was able to talk to her, and she told me, you know, just get your rhythm and blah, blah, blah. And once my husband hung up, I went back into my own world. And it's literally like I was just pulled out of my body and was just, I think I was just like a thread of conscious, oh, this is gonna sound so wild, but the best way I can describe it is that I was pulled out of my body, but there was like a little tether of me connecting me to my body that was like helping me to stay kind of conscious and present and in the moment. But I was very much like 99% not here. I was just aware of where I physically was, but I was riding the waves of these contractions. And time was so unreal to me that all I can tell you are like the focal points of what I remember. Like I was in the bathtub on my hands and knees, letting the water spray down on me. I had my husband make me a nest of pillows on the ground, and I would kind of get on my hands and knees, and then I would lay back down and rest. And somewhere along there, my body started to push on its own. It would just tense up, and I would have no choice but to just like tense up with it. And I would kind of, you know, make a little noise, and then it would relax. And so at some point, who again was not me, was like the smallest little sliver of me, just put my fingers up in my vagina just instinctively, and I felt the like slippery sack. I was like, okay, this is the sack. I was like, okay, so this is the sack. His head is here. I can feel him. So I kept doing what I was doing, and every once in a while, you know, my husband started to notice that I was doing this pushing, like this bearing down, and then eventually I was having him like brace himself behind me, the way we learned in our childbirth education classes that he like forgot how to do in the moment. And he was kind of alarmed. He was like, you're pushing, are you supposed to be pushing? And that little piece of me was like, listen, bruh, you're bruh to me right now, okay? I always call him my love. In that moment, he was bruh. I'm not doing it. My body's doing it. Leave me alone, okay? The midwife eventually called back and to check on us. And just knowing like the time of birth, I know that this must have been around 7 a.m. that she called back to check on us. So just a few hours after I had called her. And you guys, the series of events that unfolded right before she called were truly the supernatural elements that I was looking for in my birth. I wanted something magical. I wanted something where I could be like, I really believe in the power that is bigger than me. Like, I really believe that God gives us, as women birthing life, like he gives us a glimpse of something that is so so outside of what we believe, what most of us experience as our daily lives, right? I wanted something magical, and pregnancy and birth was my portal to this magical something that I wanted. And now on the other side of motherhood, I realize I've been able to open my eyes to the magic, oh my gosh, to the magic that is innate in motherhood. And I've been able to pull that back into my world after struggling with some postpartum depression. And anyways, but at the moment, at that time, I wanted that magic so deeply. And I'm so grateful for the moments of magic that I got in my birth, which are, before the midwife called, I was getting to the point where I was like, this sucks, and I think that this is getting painful. Like, the contractions were coming so quickly, and they were so intense. And the moment I kind of lost control of my focus. And once I lost control of that focus, it was like pain came flooding in, where before it wasn't pain, it was just sensation. It was just something that if I just relax and surrender to it. But once you stop surrendering and you tighten up in any kind of way, it becomes something that your brain wants to call pain, if that makes sense. And so I started to kind of come back to myself and be like, oh my gosh, this is painful, this is hard, like I'm tired, I'm so tired. Am I going to be able to do this? I've prayed for this for so long. I wanted painless birth, Lord. And in that moment, I kind of like dropped back into my body, and I heard, I had made a playlist for my labor, and I had put a lot of worship music on there, but this particular song that was playing, I hadn't added to the playlist. It was just something that after the playlist ended, it started suggesting songs. So this one that I hadn't been really hearing the music up until now because I was so focused. I randomly like tune into this song, and the lyrics are something along the lines of, I'll still call it a miracle. Like, if you do it right here, right now, I'll still call it a miracle, something like that. And I had this moment where I'm calling it a come to Jesus moment, where I was like, listen, Lord, this is painful, but if you take this pain away right now, I will still call it a miracle. I will still call it a painless birth. I will sing it from the mountaintops and sit and praise your name, like, hallelujah, this was a miracle. And when I said that prayer, I don't know if I said it out loud or if I said it to myself, but when I said that prayer, the pain stopped. I was able to focus again on my breath, and that was the only thing that existed, was my breath, and just breathing through every moment, every sensation, and there was no pain, and I was grounded, but I was also somehow out of my body at the same time, and I was just in this wave. So when the midwife called, even though the pain had stopped, the contractions were still coming so close together that I was just so tired. And I was like, I just need a break. Lord, please, I need a break. And it was like I had the clearest channel, the clearest connection to God that I have ever had. That didn't come, usually, I had the clearest channel to God. And I said, I just need a break, Lord. I need a break between these contractions. I need a break. And the contractions stopped. They spaced out. As soon as I had that thought, that prayer, like, they stopped and spaced out, and it was a miracle to me in that moment. And so I was able to like start to nap in between contractions, and that was when the midwife called, and she started asking questions about how far apart the contractions were now, because previously when I had sent her the screenshot, it said that my contractions were 2 minutes apart. And now they were definitely farther than 2 minutes apart, but I wasn't timing them anymore, and my husband wasn't either. I just knew that they were farther than that. And so I told her, like, yeah, they stretched out, and my voice was so, I could even like hear what I must sound like to her, just so calm and just tired, and like, girl, I'm trying to go back to sleep. Like, yes, I'm fine. I did have mucus, and I did have more bloody show come out, and I am feeling pressure down there, but yeah, the contractions space out. And so I feel so anyways, she was like, okay, great, I will talk to you in a little while. And my husband asked her if he should start filling up the birth pool, because he had seen at this point, he had seen the little sac or the head bulging out of me. And so he asked her if he should fill up the birth pool, and she was like, no, we don't need the birth pool anytime soon. Y'all are just getting your rhythm. And after he hung up, I don't know if it was immediately or if it was 30 minutes later. No, I don't know if it was immediately or if it was 5 minutes later, but I was like, go fill up the birth pool. And finally he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go fill up the birth pool. And so he started filling it up, and I'm, you know, doing my thing, rocking back and forth on hands and knees. And I get a thought, just clear as day, where everything has been so foggy. I get a thought that drops into me, and it's like, it's time to get this baby out. This baby has been in my birth canal for I don't know how long at this point, but it's time to get this baby out. And so my husband hadn't even finished filling the birth pool up all the way when I went to go find him, because I think I was somewhere in the bedroom and the birth pool was in the living room. And so he helps me in, and it's really hot, and so he starts filling it up with cool water before I can like get all the way in there. And the water was like not all the way up, but like to my belly. Now at this point, because of the way that I'm reclined in the birth pool, my husband can see what's going on, and I have my eyes closed and I'm just focused, because now I'm starting to feel ring of fire sensations, and me no likey. And that was the one thing that I was not able to release fear on throughout my pregnancy. That little bit of programming that had gotten its hook down in me so deep was this ring of fire that they tell you about. I couldn't dissolve my fear around. And so when I started to feel that sensation, I tightened up. I was definitely back in my body. I was not in labor land talking to God anymore. I was like, oh my gosh, this hurts. I don't like this, and I don't want this to happen anymore. I'm holding myself like, no, I don't want to, because I'm not tearing, or I don't feel that burning sensation where I thought I was gonna feel it. I thought I was gonna feel it down low, but I felt it up at the top, if you know what I'm saying. And so I was like holding myself, and my husband's like, well, don't hold the baby in. And I'm like, this hurts. Like, this is not what this was supposed to feel like. But I could not even remember to pray, y'all. I was so like, ooh, I don't like that feeling. But we just start talking to each other, and I think I might maybe post a little snippet of us talking to each other through the contractions and everything.
That's it. Yep, that's it. Good job, love. You're almost there.
Is that the cord wrapped around his neck?
Yeah, move your hand. No, it's his hand.
Oh, of course. You don't see a cord, right?
Yeah, it believes to be his hand.
He look like he's in the sack.
In the sack. Yes. You got two.
Hey! Oh, I thought that was you.
No, I'm right here.
It's the baby.
Oh, no.
No.
There you go. Good job, love. That's it. He almost out. I see his ears. What I thought was his hand was his ears.
Okay, baby, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
You got this, love. Yeah, that's your baby.
Okay, come on, baby.
Yeah,
The next contraction.
yeah.
I gotta get you.
Yeah.
And then call Crystal and tell her, oops.
Okay. I'll tell her we're contracting.
No, tell her we started getting really painful, so we got in the tub. The baby came out.
Okay, we'll call her. It's all good. You worry about this now. Alright.
Okay, come on.
You got this, love.
More contraction in your out, baby.
You're doing a good
He's
job.
tired, come on. Oh, we're just waiting on a contraction, baby.
It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
You got it, mommy.
Come on, baby.
Come on.
Okay.
I got it.
Oh, hey.
I got it.
And yeah, so I eventually did push that little baby out, and when he came out, I will say I thought he looked so limp that I wasn't sure what he was supposed to look like. And so I definitely thought he looked limp and it was a little scary, and I told my husband to call the midwife, and I just started like, I covered him with a towel on my chest and started like pouring water over us both, and I just started stimulating his back. And then when he wasn't crying or anything, I looked into his little face and I just sucked out his nose and his mouth. I just put my mouth on his and just sucked out whatever fluid was in there and spit it out. And then he made a little cry, and I knew he was gonna be fine. And yeah, I told my husband to call the midwife, and she was freaking out. She was like, what happened? How? Why? Like, so many questions. But I was back to normal. I was no longer irritated. I was like, yeah, girl, you know, I told you I felt pressure, and you know that the contractions had been 2 minutes apart. And she's like, yeah, but they spaced out. And I was like, yeah, but you know, that happens right before transition. So her and her assistant showed up maybe 30 minutes later, and they checked us all out, and little man was perfect. He did have a little hematoma on his head, which is like, usually comes from like being squeezed in the birth canal, which was my concern. But the midwife was like, well, I don't know how that could have happened with such a fast labor. So I don't know if that's what it was, but I have a feeling that he must have, like, obviously he had a hematoma. So anyways, and then for me, I did not tear. Well, so my midwife told me I didn't tear. She told me I had a laceration. I have come to realize a year postpartum, after, you know, many a month eyeing myself in the mirror, it is definitely a tear, but it was just a tear in a place where it wasn't repairable, really. Like, there was no point or need, or yeah, no point or necessity to put in any stitches there, nor would I have wanted any stitches there. But yeah, it definitely tore a little bit where I was not expecting to tear. And no, it did not magically just, you know, go back together with no stitches. So it is still, like, you can see the little tear. Like, because I know myself, I know that it's different. But yeah, other than that, I had a really easy recovery, except for at 2 weeks actually, so I take it back. I did not have an easy recovery. I was in bliss for 2 weeks postpartum, where I was on top of the world. And then I got a certain virus that wiped me out. And at 2 weeks postpartum, like, nursing this baby at all hours of the day. My husband got it. And then 2 weeks after that, when I was finally kind of coming back around, then we got food poisoning from some food that somebody dropped off to us. And so after that, postpartum was very difficult for me. And all of that, and I only add that in to say that the pain in childbirth, it comes in at one part of another, not because you're birthing a child, but because you are birthing yourself as a new woman, as a mother. And so even if you do achieve this painless birth, if that's what you want to do, and if it is what you want to do, then I want you to know that you can do it. Like, it is your birthright to birth in comfort, and you just need to do some digging and some research into what is actually truth and what is true for you. But yeah, I just say that to say that no matter what kind of birth you have, if it was traumatic or if it was orgasmic and miraculous, the pain of childbirth does manifest in one way or another, because it does have to be dealt with and transmuted in order for you to get to the magic of motherhood. And so that is what this year postpartum has been about for me, is discovering that truth and uncovering it a little bit more every day, and making motherhood magical again. And so now that's what I'm on a mission to do in my life. I'm trying to make motherhood as magical as I possibly can, because these days are numbered. I see my camera dying, so I got distracted, because these days are numbered, and I'm gonna enjoy every single one of them, and I hope you do too. So congratulations to you on your journey, wherever you are. I'm rooting for you and I love you. My camera's dying. Bye.